If you ask older generations across the Balkans about the 1970s, many describe an era of undeniable stability. They remember colorful streets, guaranteed employment, cheap housing, and a society where crime was exceptionally rare. Yet those exact same years are scarred by mass graves and political purges. Dissidents who challenged the state often found themselves exiled, leaving behind abandoned structures on desolate prison islands like Goliotok. Standing at the center of these two realities was Josip Broz Tito. Western history books often summarize him as a defiant communist who split from the Soviet bloc. But inside the borders of the former Yugoslavia, his memory splinters along ethnic and generational lines. Assessing his rule requires us to look past a singular historical record. His legacy acts as a mirror, reflecting the varied cultural memories of the people who lived under his command. For several ethnic groups, the Yugoslav state functioned as an engine of creation. Macedonians and Montenegrins saw their distinct languages formalized by the state, and their regions elevated to the status of independent republics within the federation. In highly diverse areas like Bosnia and Herzegovina, the regime enforced strict secularism and social unity, fostering a prolonged period where different religious and ethnic groups coexisted. This cultural recognition was paired with physical modernization. The state built extensive infrastructure, funded public education, and developed a coastal tourism sector that saw thousands of citizens regularly gathering on the rocky Mediterranean beaches. To these populations, the regime delivered both their cultural legitimacy and the physical foundations of a prosperous society. However, other populations experienced that exact same system as a targeted mechanism of control. His central authority actively forces disparate shapes into equilibrium, ensuring no single group can dominate. For Serbian nationalists, this meant watching territorial power divided, breaking apart to keep the scale balanced. For Croatian nationalists, unique cultural markers were smoothed out to maintain state cohesion. Even when the state made concessions, it drew hard limits. In 1974, Kosovar Albanians were granted broad local autonomy, yet they were continually denied the status of a full independent republic. What the regime celebrated as brotherhood and unity, these groups felt as the suppression of their national destinies. That relentless balancing act at home directly mirrored his approach to the rest of the world. His global credibility began in World War II. By leading these marching partisans against Nazi occupation, he secured early support from both the United States and the Soviet Union. But he refused to take orders from Moscow. He publicly broke from the Soviet bloc, directly challenging the looming threat of Joseph Stalin. Western powers recognized a strategic opportunity. American presidents and European leaders provided financial and political backing to a communist leader willing to fracture the Eastern Bloc. Rather than aligning with Washington, he leveraged his position to co-found the non-aligned movement. By taking the chairman seat, he built a network of alliances stretching across Africa, Asia, and the Arab world. Refusing to pick a side, superpowers assumed the worst. Soviets called him a Western agent, while the West remained convinced he was Moscow's secret asset. Domestically and internationally, his political survival relied on projecting total strength. But the state's internal stability was hiding a critical financial flaw. The public celebrated a robust social welfare state. Citizens were operating heavy machinery and guaranteed jobs, living in subsidized housing, and enjoying the benefits of a rapidly industrializing economy. This chart reveals the reality of that prosperity. Notice the flat line representing actual domestic output, completely overshadowed by the exponential climb of foreign debt and international credit. The Yugoslav economic miracle was entirely reliant on borrowed money, secured through his ability to play global superpowers against each other. Tito functioned as an independent center of gravity, manipulating massive geopolitical forces to keep the state's internal and external pressures in balance. When he died in 1980, the gathering of international dignitaries surrounding his casket underscored the diplomatic weight he held on the world stage. But the state's equilibrium relied on his personal willpower and diplomatic maneuvers. Without them, the structural fault lines began to pull the federation apart. Today, his legacy depends entirely on who is remembering him. He leaves us to question whether any nation built on the contradictions of one man can ever outlive him.